The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 connected platforms, each one floating in the void of space. 47 different species sat in their designated seats, some breathing oxygen, others methane, each protected by their own atmosphere fields. The chamber had existed for over 6,000 years, a symbol of unity among the stars. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the human section, a modest area near the back. Her dark hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her tired eyes watched the debate unfold. She had been awake for 36 hours, but that was normal. It was always normal for humans. On the central platform, the Sovereign Nest representative clicked his mandibles in anger. His species looked like massive insects standing nearly 3 meters tall. "The mineral rights belong to us," he declared, his voice translated instantly into every language. "Our ancestors discovered that system 4 centuries ago." The Luminar Collective Ambassador rose to respond. Her people were beings of light, shimmering in shades of blue and gold. "Discovery does not equal ownership," she said, her voice like bells chiming. "The Galactic Charter clearly states that unclaimed systems require Council approval for colonization." Chen Wei rubbed her temples. This argument had been going on for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of the same points repeated endlessly. Meanwhile, her tablet showed 247 urgent messages waiting for her attention. Supply chain problems in the outer territories, a medical emergency on Station Kepler, a brewing conflict between 2 minor species that could explode into war if someone did not mediate soon. But the Council did not care about those things. Those were human problems now. It had been this way for 200 years, ever since humanity joined the Galactic Council. At first, humans had been excited. They were the youngest species to ever earn a seat, barely 500 years into space travel when the elder races found them. The Council had seemed like a dream, a chance to learn from civilizations millions of years old. The reality was different. Humans quickly learned that the elder species had long ago stopped doing certain types of work. Infrastructure maintenance was beneath the Sovereign Nest. The Luminar Collective considered logistics to be tedious. The ancient Chromath Empire found medical research too slow and boring. Every elder species had their reasons for not doing what they called lesser tasks, so humans did them instead. At first it was voluntary. Humans were good at organizing things, at making systems work. They did not mind the detail work that others found beneath them. But voluntary work slowly became expected work. Then it became invisible work. Chen Wei looked around the chamber. None of the elder species noticed that every single supply ship that kept their worlds fed was managed by human logistics coordinators. They did not think about who maintained the stations they met on, or who had developed the medical treatments that extended their lives. They certainly never acknowledged the human diplomats who worked in the shadows, preventing wars before they started. "Ambassador Chen Wei," a voice said, pulling her from her thoughts. It was the Council Arbiter, an ancient being named Zalthor, whose species had been traveling the stars when Earth was still covered in ice. "You requested time to address the Council?" Chen Wei stood, smoothing her simple gray suit. Around her, she felt the attention of the chamber shift to her, some with mild curiosity, most with barely hidden irritation. Humans were tolerated but rarely taken seriously. "Thank you, Arbiter," she said, her voice steady. "I need to bring to the Council's attention a critical infrastructure failure developing in the outer territories. 17 stations are showing signs of cascade failure in their environmental systems. If we do not act within the next month, we could see catastrophic loss of life." The Sovereign Nest representative clicked his mandibles in what she had learned was their version of a dismissive laugh. "The outer territories have always had problems, Ambassador. Surely your human technicians can handle such a minor matter." "It is not a minor matter," Chen Wei replied, keeping her voice level. "We are talking about 300 million lives across those stations. The systems are old and they need complete replacement, not just repairs. This requires Council resources and authorization." The Luminar ambassador shimmered in a pattern that indicated boredom. "Ambassador Chen, the Council is currently addressing a territorial dispute of great importance. Infrastructure concerns can be submitted through the proper channels for review, perhaps in next cycle's agenda." Next cycle meant 6 months from now. Chen Wei felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her face neutral. "Arbiter, with respect, 300 million lives cannot wait 6 months. Zalthor made a gesture with his long fingers. "Ambassador Chen, your concern is noted. However, the Council has established procedures for a reason. Please submit a formal proposal, and we will address it in due time. This session is adjourned. The dismissal was final. Around the chamber, representatives began to leave, already talking among themselves about the evening's entertainment. A grand feast was planned on the Luminar homeworld, celebrating their recent cultural festival. Chen Wei gathered her things slowly. Her aide Marcus Rivera approached her, his face showing the same frustration she felt. "They do not listen," he said quietly in Mandarin, knowing the translation systems would not bother with a side conversation. "They never do," Chen Wei replied in the same language. She switched back to English as they walked toward the exit. "How bad is it, really?" Marcus pulled up his tablet, showing her the data. Station Kepler is the worst. Their environmental systems are held together with temporary fixes we made 8 months ago. The outer territory stations are not far behind. And that is just the infrastructure problems. He swiped to another screen. We have 4 separate conflicts brewing, 2 medical crises, and the trade routes are a mess because the Chromath decided to change their tariff structure without telling anyone. And we are supposed to fix all of it, Chen Wei said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. They reached the human quarters, a modest section of the station that humans had built themselves. Inside, dozens of human workers filled every room. Engineers analyzed station blueprints, diplomats made calls to angry species leaders, medical researchers shared data across dozens of worlds, logistics coordinators tracked thousands of supply ships. Every single one of them looked exhausted. Every single one of them kept working. Chen Wei stood at the entrance watching her people. They were the youngest species in the galaxy, barely children by elder race standards, but they were the ones who made everything work. They were the invisible backbone holding together a galactic civilization that did not even notice they were there. "Ambassador," a voice called. It was Dr. Sarah Kim, head of the Human Medical Research Division. "We just got word from the Vorath system. The plague treatment we developed is working. They are calling it a miracle. Did they credit us?" Marcus asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Sarah shook her head. "The Vorath government announced it as their own breakthrough. No mention of our research team. It was always like that. Humans did the work. Others took the credit. And the council never noticed or never cared." Chen Wei looked at the tired faces around her, at the good people who gave everything and received nothing but more demands in return. A thought crossed her mind, one she had been pushing away for months. How long could they keep doing this? How long before her people broke under the weight of holding up an entire galactic civilization that did not value them? "Keep working," she told them, because that was what leaders did. "We have people depending on us." But as she walked to her office, Chen Wei made a decision. She opened a secure channel and sent out a coded message to every human leader across the galaxy. 3 words that would change everything. "We need to talk." Outside the window, the stars shone in the darkness, beautiful and cold. Somewhere out there, beyond the edges of known space, there was a place where humans might be more than the invisible workers holding together someone else's dream. Chen Wei looked at her reflection in the window. 200 years was long enough. The emergency call came at 0300 station time. Marcus Rivera was already awake, reviewing supply routes, when his tablet exploded with red alerts. Station Kepler, one of the largest neutral trading posts in the galaxy, was dying. "Environmental system failure," the automated message repeated. "Life support critical. 100,000 inhabitants at risk." Marcus hit the emergency channel. Within minutes, every human engineer within jump range was mobilizing. Chen Wei appeared on his screen, her face pale. "How bad?" "The reactor cooling system failed," Marcus said, his fingers flying across multiple screens. "The whole station is going to cook from the inside out if we cannot fix it. We have maybe 72 hours before the heat kills everyone aboard." "The council?" Chen Wei asked. Marcus laughed bitterly. "I sent them the alert." The automated response said they would convene an emergency session within 48 hours to discuss relief options. 48 hours. By then, thousands would already be dead. Chen Wei's face hardened. "Get our people there now." "Do whatever it takes." The human response was immediate. 23 ships diverted to Kepler Station. Among them was the engineering vessel Prometheus, carrying the best human engineers in the sector. Leading them was Marcus Rivera, along with Chief Engineer Yuki Tanaka. a woman whose understanding of reactor systems was legendary among humans. When they arrived at Kepler Station, the situation was worse than the reports suggested. The station was filled with dozens of species, all panicking in their own ways. The Sovereign Nest residents were trying to build individual shelters. The Luminar beings were attempting to petition their government for rescue ships. The Chromath were arguing about whose fault it was. No one was fixing the problem. Marcus gathered his team in the docking bay. They were 37 humans total, facing a reactor complex designed for a maintenance crew of 200. "We have 70 hours, he said simply. "We save everyone or we die trying." Yuki Tanaka pulled up the reactor schematics on her tablet. Her dark eyes scanned the data quickly. "The cooling system is completely fried. We need to manually reroute the heat exhaust while simultaneously repairing the primary regulators. If we mess up even slightly, the reactor goes critical and takes half the sector with it." "Then we do not mess up," Marcus said. The work began immediately. Human engineers split into teams, each tackling a different part of the catastrophic failure. The heat inside the reactor levels was already reaching dangerous levels. Even in protective suits, the humans could only work in 30-minute shifts before heat exhaustion forced them out. But they kept going. When one team collapsed from the heat, another team took their place. They worked in the toxic air that the station's failing filters could no longer clean. They crawled through maintenance tunnels so hot that their suit's cooling system screamed warnings. They did not stop. Marcus coordinated from the engineering bay, his screen showing 37 human life signs. Every time one flickered, his heart stopped. Every time it stabilized, he breathed again. Around him, the other species watched in confusion. The elder races did not understand why humans were risking their lives for a station full of people who barely acknowledged they existed. 50 hours in, they hit a critical problem. The main coolant line to the reactor core was completely blocked. Someone needed to go directly into the reactor chamber, into the radiation zone, to manually clear it. The radiation levels were lethal. Even in a protective suit, whoever went in would have maybe 20 minutes before the exposure became fatal. "I will go," Yuki said immediately. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Yuki, you know what that means." She looked at him with calm eyes. "I know, but I'm the only one who can do this fast enough." "You know that too." She was right. Yuki had worked on more reactors than anyone else on the team. If anyone could clear that line in 20 minutes, it was her. But 20 minutes in that radiation meant death even if she succeeded. "There has to be another way," Marcus said desperately. "There is not," Yuki replied. 100,000 people, Marcus. 100,000 lives. What is one life against that? She did not wait for permission. Yuki sealed her suit, grabbed the tools she needed, and walked into the reactor chamber. Marcus watched her life signs on his screen, watching the radiation counter climb higher and higher. 18 minutes later, the coolant line cleared. The reactor temperature began to drop. Yuki Tanaka had saved Station Kepler, but when they pulled her out of the reactor chamber, her radiation exposure was far beyond lethal levels. The medical team did everything they could, but some things could not be fixed. Yuki died 6 hours later, her last words a joke about how she hoped someone else would handle the paperwork. The news spread across the station quickly. The human engineers had saved everyone, but one of them had paid the ultimate price. Species from across the station came to pay respects. Many seemed genuinely moved, some even confused about why a human would sacrifice herself for non-humans. Then the Galactic Council arrived. The emergency session had finally convened, 3 full days after the crisis began. By then the station was safe, the repairs were complete, and Yuki Tanaka was dead. The council delegation toured the reactor, examined the repair work, and prepared their official statement. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the station's main hall as Council Arbiter Zalthor read the statement. She had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes felt like sandpaper, but she listened to every word. The Galactic Council acknowledges the recent difficulties at Station Kepler, Zalthor said in his formal tone. We are pleased that the situation was resolved with minimal casualties. The Council extends its thoughts and acknowledgments to all those affected. Minimal casualties. Chen Wei felt something cold settle in her stomach. 1 human engineer was dead. 37 humans had risked their lives, and the Council called it minimal casualties. Furthermore, Zalthor continued, the Council recognizes the contribution of the repair efforts. However, after careful review, We must note that the emergency was caused by failure to properly maintain council infrastructure. The responsibility for this failure must be appropriately assigned. Chen Wei felt Marcus tense beside her. Surely they were not about to. The Sovereign Nest has claimed that the spare parts used in repairs came from their territorial holdings, Zalthor said. Therefore, by council law, credit for the successful resolution belongs to the Sovereign Nest, who provided the crucial resources that made repairs possible. The Sovereign Nest representative clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Around the hall, other council members nodded in agreement. It made sense to them. Resources meant credit. That was how things worked in the Galactic Council. Chen Wei stood slowly. Her voice when she spoke was very quiet. Arbiter, I wish to address the council regarding the family of engineer Yuki Tanaka. She gave her life to save this station. Her family deserves recognition and compensation. Zalthor looked at her with what might have been sympathy on his alien face. Ambassador Chen, the council is not unsympathetic. However, engineer Tanaka's actions, while regrettable, were voluntary. The council cannot establish a precedent of compensating every individual who chooses to put themselves in danger. Surely you understand the position this would put us in. I understand perfectly, Chen Wei said, and she did. She understood that a human had died saving 100,000 lives, and the council could not be bothered to even say thank you properly. She formally requested a vote on recognition and compensation. The council voted. 45 species voted against. Only 2 minor species, those who had human diplomats quietly helping them with their own problems, voted in favor. Even the species whose citizens Yuki had died to save voted against the measure. Chen Wei left the station that day knowing something fundamental had broken. She was not the only one. Across the galaxy, humans watched the vote. They saw how their sacrifice was treated. They saw how their work was valued. That night, Chen Wei met with the other human leaders through encrypted channels. The meeting lasted 6 hours. Every human colony, every human station, every human leader across the galaxy participated. They talked about everything they had given, everything they had built, everything they had sacrificed, and they talked about what would happen if they simply stopped. The vote was unanimous. Project Silent Exodus was approved. Humanity would leave the Galactic Council, not in anger, not with speeches or declarations. They would simply finish their work, file their resignations, and go somewhere else. Somewhere they could build something for themselves instead of holding up a civilization that did not value them. Chen Wei looked at the faces on her screen, at the tired, determined expressions of humanity's best and brightest. We have given 200 years, she said. We have given our labor, our knowledge, and now our lives. It is time to give ourselves a chance instead. Across the galaxy, humans began to plan their quiet departure. They would leave the elder species to face the consequences of taking the invisible backbone for granted. They would leave peacefully, professionally, and completely, and they would never look back. The withdrawal began on a Tuesday, not because Tuesday had any special significance, but because that was when the first human logistics coordinator submitted her resignation to the Chromath Empire's Trade Commission. Her name was Jennifer Park, and she had spent 15 years managing the food supply chains that kept 12 Chromath worlds fed. Her resignation letter was polite and professional. She offered to train her replacement for 2 weeks. The Chromath barely noticed. They assumed she was transferring to another position. They did not understand that she, like thousands of other humans across the galaxy, was leaving forever. Project Silent Exodus had one simple rule: leave no traces of anger, only absence. Humans would finish their current projects, file proper paperwork, offer training to replacements, and then quietly disappear. The galaxy would wake up one day and realize the backbone holding everything together was gone. Marcus Rivera coordinated the withdrawal from a hidden facility in the Outer Territories. His screens showed thousands of human workers across hundreds of worlds, each one following the carefully planned timeline. Engineers finished their repairs and handed over maintenance schedules. Doctors completed their research and submitted final reports. Diplomats closed their cases and filed proper documentation. Everything was done correctly. Everything was done by the book. That was the point. How are the elder species reacting? Chen Wei asked during their daily briefing. Marcus pulled up a report. They are not. Most think we are just reorganizing our workforce. The Luminar Collective asked if we could delay some resignations because they have a cultural festival coming up, and need human event coordinators. The Sovereign Nest actually seemed relieved that we are leaving some positions. They think it means they can hire cheaper labor from other species. Chen Wei shook her head. Even now, even as humanity prepared to leave entirely, the elder species saw them as nothing more than convenient workers. And the training sessions? Going poorly, Marcus admitted. We are trying to teach other species how to maintain the systems we built, but most are not interested in learning. The Chromath sent junior staff to our logistics training. The Luminar representative fell asleep during the medical research briefing. Only a few minor species are actually paying attention. It was not surprising. The elder species had spent millennia believing certain work was beneath them. They were not going to change their minds just because humans were leaving. They would learn the hard way or they would not learn at all. Across the galaxy, humans began packing. Not just their personal belongings, but 200 years of accumulated knowledge. Every research database, every engineering schematic, every diplomatic protocol that humans had developed was copied and prepared for transport. The galaxy had never valued human knowledge, but humans valued it. They would take it with them. Deep in unexplored space, beyond the edges of Council territory, human colony ships were gathering. These were not new ships. Humans had been building them quietly for decades, a contingency plan that most had hoped would never be needed. Now those ships represented humanity's future. The far reach, they called it. A section of the galaxy so distant that even the elder species with their millions of years of space travel had never bothered to explore it. It was dangerous, filled with stellar hazards and unknown phenomena, but it was also free from the Galactic Council and their endless demands. Chen Wei visited one of the colony ships during the preparation phase. The vessel was enormous, designed to carry 50,000 humans and everything they would need to start a new civilization. Inside, families were already moving in, children running through corridors that smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. "Are you scared?" a little girl asked Chen Wei as she toured the ship. The child could not have been more than 7, with bright eyes and a smile that reminded Chen Wei why they were doing this. "No," Chen Wei said honestly, "I am hopeful." "My dad says we are going to build something amazing," the girl said. "Something that is ours." "Your dad is right," Chen Wei replied. "We are going to build a future where human children grow up valued, not used." 6 months into the withdrawal, the first cracks appeared in the Council systems. Minor things at first. A trade route that suddenly had no coordinator, causing shipments to pile up at the wrong stations. A medical emergency where the experimental treatment developed by humans was suddenly unavailable because the research team had left. A diplomatic dispute that spiraled into threats because there was no human mediator to calm things down. The Council noticed, but only barely. They sent inquiries to human offices, asking when workers would return to their posts. The inquiries went unanswered because those offices were now empty. Then came the day Chen Wei had been both dreading and anticipating. The final message. She stood in the Council chambers one last time, wearing her formal ambassador uniform. The chamber was half empty, most representatives busy with other matters. They had not even realized this was the last time they would see a human in their halls. Arbiter Zalthor noticed her standing there. "Ambassador Chen, do you have council business?" "I do, Arbiter," Chen Wei said clearly. "I am here to formally deliver humanity's resignation from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The chamber went quiet. Those representatives who were present looked at her with confusion. Resign? Species did not resign from the Council. They sought membership for centuries, considering it the highest honor. "I'm sorry, Ambassador," Zalthor said slowly. "Did you say resign?" "Yes, Arbiter," Chen Wei replied. She pulled out a data tablet and uploaded the official document to the Council network. Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. All human workers, researchers, engineers, diplomats, and coordinators have been recalled. We have filed proper documentation for every position we have vacated. Training materials have been left for replacement workers. All contractual obligations have been fulfilled. The Sovereign Nest representative clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "Ambassador, is this some kind of negotiation tactic? Are humans seeking more representation?" "No," Chen Wei said simply. "We are leaving." "Leaving to where?" The Luminar ambassador asked, her light flickering with confusion. "That is our business," Chen Wei said. "We have done our duty to the Council for 200 years. Now we choose to do our duty to ourselves." Zalthor leaned forward. his ancient eyes studying Chen Wei. For a moment she thought she saw understanding there. Then he leaned back. The Council accepts your resignation, though we regret this decision. Humans have been valued members. Valued members. Chen Wei almost laughed. Valued like a tool is valued, useful until it breaks. But she kept her face neutral. Thank you, Arbiter. On behalf of humanity, we wish the Galactic Council well. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, she heard the Council representatives already talking, their voices dismissive. Finally, someone said, the children have decided to leave. One less voice to manage, another agreed. We should celebrate this tonight, a third suggested. Fewer species means faster decisions. Chen Wei did not look back. She walked through corridors she had walked for decades, past offices she would never see again, through doors that would close behind her forever. Her ship was waiting, the last human vessel in Council space. Marcus met her at the docking bay. Everyone is out, he reported. Every human in Council territory is either already at the far reach or on their way there. We are the last ones. Then let us go, Chen Wei said. As their ship pulled away from the station, Chen Wei looked at the view screen, the Council chambers, the massive stations, the hundreds of worlds that made up the galactic civilization. It was beautiful and grand, built over thousands of years by dozens of species, and now humans were leaving it behind. Not in anger, not with violence or threats. They were simply choosing themselves over serving those who did not value them. Activate the timers, Chen Wei ordered. Throughout Council space, the automated systems humans had left behind began their countdown. 6 months of operation remaining before they would shut down permanently. 6 months for the elder species to figure out how to run their own civilization, without the invisible workers who had held it together. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward the far reach and whatever future humanity would build there. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their meetings, planning their festivals, arguing over territorial rights. They did not notice that the backbone holding up their civilization had just walked out the door. They would notice soon enough. Chen Wei closed her eyes and felt for the first time in 200 years the weight lift from her shoulders. They were free. Whatever came next, it would be theirs. In the observation deck, that little girl Chen Wei had met earlier pressed her face against the window, watching the stars blur past. Are we there yet? She asked her father. Not yet, he replied, smiling, but we are on our way. Humanity was on its way to something new, something earned, something theirs, and they left behind only silence and the coming consequences of being taken for granted. The first real problem appeared 63 days after humanity left. A supply ship carrying food to the Chromath homeworld arrived at the wrong station, 2 systems away from its destination. The cargo sat there for 3 weeks before anyone realized the mistake. By then, the food had spoiled. It was a small problem. The Chromath simply ordered another shipment, except that shipment also went to the wrong place. And the third shipment never arrived at all because the automated routing system had defaulted to outdated coordinates. Where are the human coordinators? The Chromath logistics minister demanded. Get them to fix this immediately. His aide looked uncomfortable. Minister, the humans resigned 2 months ago. They are gone. Gone where? We do not know, Minister. They just left. The Chromath minister stared at his aide. Well, then assign someone else to coordinate the supply routes. How difficult can it be? Very difficult, as it turned out. The human-designed logistics network was incredibly complex, managing thousands of routes across hundreds of worlds. It had taken humans decades to build and required constant adjustments. The Chromath assigned their best mathematicians to the task. After 3 weeks, the mathematicians reported that they understood perhaps 30% of the system. The food shortages began in month 4. Meanwhile, in the medical research facilities across the galaxy, scientists made a disturbing discovery. Half of their ongoing projects had suddenly stalled. The experimental treatments for dozens of diseases were stuck at crucial testing phases. Dr. Veloth of the Luminar Collective stared at the incomplete research files in confusion. Where are the baseline studies? She asked her team. Where are the control group analyses? The humans took them, a junior researcher reported. All their research data went with them when they left. But we funded that research, Dr. Veloth protested. That data belongs to the collective. Actually, the researcher said nervously, According to the contracts, humans retained intellectual property rights to their research methodologies. They fulfilled their contractual obligations by submitting the final reports, but the underlying data was theirs to keep. Dr. Veloth felt a chill. Without those baselines, without the methodologies humans had developed, years of research were essentially worthless. They would have to start over from the beginning. How many people would die from diseases that could have been cured if the humans were still here? Month 6 arrived with a crisis that made the food shortages look minor. Station Kepler, the same station humans had saved with Yuki Tanaka's sacrifice, suffered another catastrophic failure. This time, it was the water recycling system. The emergency call went out across the galaxy. Critical failure at Station Kepler. Requesting immediate engineering support. No human ships responded. There were no human ships left in Council space. The Sovereign Nest sent their best engineers. The Luminar Collective dispatched technical experts. The Chromath contributed resources. But none of them had the knowledge humans had possessed. They looked at the complex machinery humans had maintained for decades and had no idea how to fix it. The evacuation was chaotic. Different species had different requirements for evacuation ships. Methane breathers could not share ships with oxygen breathers. Large species needed special transport. In the confusion, coordination broke down completely. By the time the evacuation was over, 30,000 beings had died. Most did not die from the water failure itself, but from the panic and chaos of an evacuation with no one qualified to manage it. Where were the human coordinators who had always handled these situations? Gone. Where were the human engineers who knew these systems inside and out? Gone. Where were the humans who had held everything together? Gone. And the galaxy finally noticed they were gone. By month 9, the economic collapse was in full swing. The galactic credit, the currency that had been stable for 3,000 years, was fluctuating wildly. Turns out humans had managed 73% of all interspecies trade coordination. Without them, no one could agree on exchange rates, tariff structures, or trade routes. Species began defaulting to bilateral trade agreements, but those were inefficient and often contradictory. The vast economic machine of the galactic civilization was grinding to a halt, and no one knew how to restart it. Someone must be able to do what the humans did, the Chromath Emperor declared to his council. They were the youngest species. Surely any of the elder races can learn their systems, but the elder races refused. The Sovereign Nest would not lower themselves to logistics work. The Luminar Collective considered trade coordination beneath their dignity. The ancient Chromath could not spare their best minds for such tedious tasks. Every species had their own reasons why they could not do the work humans had done. So the work did not get done at all. The worst came in month 12. The Verath and the Zintar, two species with an ancient rivalry, reignited their conflict over a border dispute. It was the kind of conflict that had happened a dozen times before. Each time human diplomats had quietly mediated, finding compromises that let both sides save face. This time, there were no human diplomats. The Galactic Council tried to intervene, but their approach was heavy-handed and formal. They demanded that both sides accept council arbitration. The Verath and Zintar, feeling disrespected, both refused. The conflict escalated from shouting to shooting. The war lasted only 3 months, but it was brutal. 3 million died before exhaustion forced both sides to accept a ceasefire. The treaty that ended the war was worse than any compromise humans could have negotiated. Both species lost territory. Both felt humiliated, and the seeds were planted for the next conflict. Arbiter Zalthor stood in the council chambers, looking at the empty human section. His species lived for thousands of years, and in his long life he had seen many changes. But he had never seen the council look so broken. How did we not notice? He asked aloud, though no one was present to hear. He accessed the historical records, something he should have done months ago. The files filled his screen. 200 years of human reports, proposals, warnings. Every single infrastructure problem that was now crippling the galaxy had been predicted. The humans had warned them. Over and over, humans had filed reports about failing systems, economic vulnerabilities, and potential conflicts, and every single report had been dismissed, delayed, or ignored. Zalthor read through them all, and with each report, the weight of realization grew heavier. The galaxy had not been running itself for 200 years. Humans had been running it. The elder species had become so comfortable, so convinced of their own superiority, that they had not noticed they were completely dependent on the youngest species in the Council. By month 18, the Galactic Council was fragmenting. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia were now blaming each other for the cascading failures. The Sovereign Nest blamed the Luminar Collective for economic mismanagement. The Luminar blamed the Chromath for hoarding resources. The Chromath blamed everyone for incompetence. No one blamed themselves. No one acknowledged that they had created this situation by treating humans as invisible servants rather than valued partners. "We need to contact the humans," someone suggested during a council session. "Offer them incentives to return," they tried. Messages were sent to the last known human coordinates. Offers of better representation, better compensation, formal recognition. Some messages were apologetic. Others were demanding, insisting that humans had a duty to return and help. All the messages went unanswered. The humans had disappeared as completely as if they had never existed. Their ships left no trails. Their destination was unknown. The most advanced tracking technology of the elder species found nothing. Humanity had vanished into the darkness between the stars. Some species attempted to follow. The Luminar Collective sent exploration ships toward the outer galaxy, where they suspected humans had gone. 3 ships never returned. 2 came back damaged, reporting gravitational anomalies and stellar hazards that their ships were not designed to handle. Wherever humans had gone, they had gone somewhere the elder species could not easily follow. In his private chambers, Zalthor composed a message that would never be sent. He wrote an apology, a real one, acknowledging everything the Council had done wrong. He wrote about the value humanity had brought, the work they had done, the sacrifices they had made. He wrote about Yuki Tanaka, who had died saving a station full of people who had not even thanked her. But what good was an apology now? The damage was done. The galaxy was paying the price for 200 years of taking for granted the backbone that held everything together. Outside his window, a transport ship drifted by, moving on manual controls because the automated systems had failed. It was a small thing, but it was a reminder. Every day brought more small failures, each one a consequence of humanity's absence. The Galactic Council had learned a bitter lesson. In their arrogance, they had believed that age meant wisdom and power meant competence. They had looked at young humanity and seen nothing but useful servants. They had never looked closely enough to see the foundation humanity had built, or to realize that foundations once removed bring everything crashing down. Now they were living in the ruins of their own neglect, and somewhere far away, humanity was building something new, something that belonged to them, something the elder species would never see. The galaxy had been given 200 years to value humanity. 5 years after humanity left, the Galactic Council still stood. Barely. The grand chambers that once hosted 47 species now saw regular attendance from only 32. Some species had withdrawn entirely, retreating to their home systems. Others had formed smaller alliances, deciding that the Council was too broken to function. But something had changed. Something fundamental. In a small classroom on the Luminar homeworld, a young historian named Karesh stood before her students. Her light shimmed in patterns of excitement as she held up a data tablet. "Today," she announced, "we are going to discuss what historians are now calling the Great Departure." The students, all young Luminar in their first century of life, looked at her with curiosity. They had grown up in the aftermath of humanity's leaving, but most knew only fragments of the story. "Can anyone tell me why the humans left?" Karesh asked. A student's light flickered thoughtfully. "Because they were not respected?" "Deeper than that," Karesh said. She activated her tablet, projecting images around the classroom: supply chains, infrastructure schematics, medical research, diplomatic logs. "The humans left because we took them for granted. No, more than that. We made them invisible." She pulled up a specific file, one she had discovered during her research. "This is a report filed by Human Ambassador Chen Wei, dated 17 years before the departure. In it, she warned that Station Kepler's environmental systems were failing. She asked for Council resources to fix them. The request was denied as not urgent. Station Kepler failed twice. The first time, a human engineer named Yuki Tanaka died saving everyone. The second time, 30,000 beings died because there were no humans left to save them. The classroom was silent. Koresh continued, showing report after report. Warnings about infrastructure, predictions about economic collapse, pleas for help with conflicts that later erupted into war. Every single crisis the galaxy had suffered in the past 5 years had been predicted by humans. This is not just history, Koresh said quietly. This is a mirror. When we look at what happened, we see what we became. Species so proud, so convinced of our superiority, that we could not see the value of those who actually kept our civilization functioning. Koresh had written a book about her findings. She called it, The Invisible Backbone: Humanity's Role in Galactic Civilization. It had become required reading across multiple species' educational systems. Not because the Council mandated it, but because people needed to understand how everything had fallen apart. Her book ended with a question that still echoed across the galaxy. What do we owe those who hold us up? And what happens when they decide we are too heavy to carry? In the council chambers, now managed by a coalition of elder species who had finally learned to do their own administrative work, a message arrived. It had taken 2 years to trace humanity's path through the outer galaxy. Another year to find a way to send a message that might reach them. The message was simple: a formal apology from the Galactic Council, an acknowledgement of everything humanity had done, and an invitation to return. Not as workers, not as servants, as equals. The council waited for a response. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Some representatives were hopeful. Others were resigned. All of them knew they had no right to expect forgiveness. Arbiter Zalthor, still leading the council despite his thousands of years, thought often about the humans. He had changed in the 5 years since they left. The crisis had stripped away his comfortable assumptions. He worked now, actually worked, coordinating council business himself instead of delegating it to others. It was exhausting. It made him respect what humans had done even more. Meanwhile, in the far reach, humanity had built something remarkable. The new Terra Alliance was not one world but 30, each one a thriving colony connected by human ships and human ingenuity. They had faced incredible challenges in those 5 years. The far reach was dangerous, filled with stellar phenomena that the elder species had been right to avoid. But humans had always been good at adapting to difficult situations. On New Terra Prime, the capital world of the Alliance, children played in parks built by human hands. Cities rose where there had been empty worlds. Universities taught the next generation everything humans had learned, not just from their own history, but from 200 years among the stars. Chen Wei, no longer an ambassador but a professor of history and diplomacy, stood in her classroom looking remarkably like Koresh across the galaxy. She was older now, gray streaking her dark hair, but her eyes were brighter than they had been in decades. "Why did we leave?" a student asked her. His name was David, born during the journey to the far reach. He had never known the Galactic Council. "Because we needed to," Chen Wei answered honestly. "We were drowning, trying to hold up a civilization that did not see us. We left so we could breathe. Do you regret it?" another student asked. Chen Wei looked out the window at the city beyond. Human architecture, built to human needs without having to accommodate 47 different species requirements. Human children growing up valued for who they were, not for how useful they could be to others. "No," she said, "I do not regret it at all." That evening, Chen Wei was called to the Alliance Council chambers. The message from the Galactic Council had finally arrived after a 5-year journey. She stood with other human leaders, reading the apology, the invitation, the promises of equality. The debate lasted 3 months. Some humans wanted to return to help the galaxy rebuild. Others felt the Council had no right to ask for anything after what they had done. Still others suggested a middle path, limited contact, trade perhaps, but no rejoining. Chen Wei listened to all the arguments. She thought about Yuki Tanaka, who had died trying to save people who did not even thank her. She thought about the 37 engineers who had risked everything at Station Kepler. She thought about 200 years of invisible labor, but she also thought about the young Luminar historian who had written a book honoring human contributions. She thought about the species who were genuinely trying to learn from their mistakes. She thought about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, some good could come from tragedy. When it came time to respond, the Alliance Council chose Chen Wei to record the message. She sat in front of the camera, wearing simple clothes, looking tired but content. "To the Galactic Council," she began. "We have received your message and your apology. We appreciate the acknowledgement of what we gave and what was lost when we left." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "You ask us to return, we cannot. The humans who served the Council no longer exist. We have changed. We have built something here in the far reach, something that belongs to us. We have raised children who know their value not by how useful they are to others, but by their own inherent worth." Another pause. "However, we do not forget where we came from. We do not forget the good beings we met among the Council species, those who treated us with respect even when their leaders did not. Perhaps in time we can meet again, not as members of your Council, but as neighbors, as equals." Chenwei leaned forward slightly. "We left not out of anger, but out of necessity. We do not return because you ask, but we do not close the door forever. Give us time. Give yourselves time. Learn to value the work that holds civilizations together. Learn to respect those who do it. And perhaps one day our grandchildren can meet as true equals, with no invisible workers holding up anyone's dreams." She ended the recording. The message was sent back across the vast distance. Another 5-year journey to reach the Council. That night, Chenwei stood on her balcony, looking up at stars that were different from the ones she had known in Council space. Her granddaughter, born in the far reach, came to stand beside her. "Grandma," the girl asked, "will we ever see the Council?" "Maybe," Chenwei said. "When you are grown, maybe. If they have changed enough. If we are ready." What were they like? Chenwei thought about the question. "Beautiful," she said honestly. "The galaxy we left behind was beautiful. Ancient species with millions of years of history, incredible art and science and culture. But beauty is not enough if there is no respect beneath it. Do you think they will change?" "I think they have to," Chenwei said. "They learned that a civilization cannot stand on an invisible foundation. Maybe that is a lesson worth the cost, terrible as it was." Back in Council space, Koresh published a second book. This one was not about the past, but about the future. She called it Learning to Stand: How the Galactic Council Can Rebuild Without the Humans to Hold It Up. The book was controversial. Many elder species resented the implication that they could not function without humanity, but many more, especially the younger generation, embraced its message. They volunteered for logistics work. They studied infrastructure maintenance. They learned to do the invisible work that held civilization together. It was slow. It was difficult. Species that had spent millennia considering such work beneath them had to humble themselves to learn it. But gradually, painfully, the galaxy was adapting. Zalthor, in his final years, read both of Koresh's books. He thought about the human ambassador who had stood in his chambers 5 years ago, resigning quietly and with